And when you talked about education, that was huge for me, because I think it's a forgotten thing in politics. People don't think that's political. Detroit is still a mess. You know, it's still a mess. But we've seen Washtenaw County kind of fall over the last several years with schooling too. And I think there's a bit of redlining in Washtenaw County with the way they've done some things, and we won't really go down that path. But what can we do to get some of these school systems on the same plane? I mean, I've seen it from the southeast side of Ann Arbor to the northwest side of Ann Arbor. If a kid goes to Mac School or Ann Arbor Open and a kid goes to Mitchell Elementary, those are two different curriculums. Same city, but they're teaching the kids differently. What can we do to get all of those kids back on the same plane, which I think it was much closer when I was growing up here than it is now. I believe that the sign of the times has basically got teachers teaching to the best of what they want to. I mean, I don't think it's the best of their capabilities, but I think the teachers only teach as much as they need to, and they don't push these kids. And that's also a situation too, where you can't say the same things and do the same things with students that you used to. So some of these teachers are really just kind of in autopilot, you know, and they're not as forceful with the students, because you say the wrong thing to a kid, you know, you're right before a review board nowadays, whether it used to be you just talk to the parents, say, hey, kid was being a jerk, this is what happened, and you went about your business. Now you got to go all types of boards and meetings and this, that, and the other. And teachers, I don't think, are as ballsy to deal with students as they used to be. And frankly, I think some of them just gave up, and they're running in place. And I've seen it, because I've seen students on the northwest side and I've seen students on the southeast side. They teach them different, and that means that if the kid's learning differently, they're not going to take the same things to the next level. And a kid goes from Mitchell to Scarlett, from Ann Arbor Open to Forsyth, those are two different kids. And by the time they get to Ann Arbor Huron and Ann Arbor Pioneer, those kids are miles apart from what they've learned based on the schools that they went to. What do we do to pull all that back in? Can we get the curriculums where they're starting to work more in a seamless fashion again, and not have everybody out here like on an island, teaching and educating the way they want to, just we all teach in a more uniformed state?
Yeah, so you gave me a lot to respond to there. Let me take a quick step back and say that, sure, yes, with respect to the job training stuff, that's very, very important. And with respect, sure, to trying to communicate to young people today that, you know, a university four-year degree is the only end-all be-all of your future is wrong. And I think that more and more folks are coming around to that. And you're absolutely right. I just want to highlight and agree with you that there are a lot of great opportunities out there in all sorts of professions. And, you know, if folks want to get into a lucrative profession and you know, make good money, and, you know, like you said, buy a house in your 20s, going into the trades is a great option. You know, going into something like teaching or politics is going to be much less lucrative, and, you know, young people need to know that. The state just invested, I think, $30 million in the Reconnect program, which is a big training rollout, and so hopefully that will provide some more support. And I do want to let you know that the MDOC now has a program with Jackson Community College around culinary arts at Jackson, and so they are trying to get those certificates going, and there is some of that work going. My big push in the prisons, though, is to get more work going on with computers, because to your point, you know, people who go to prison spend any length of time, you know, miss out on that huge movement in technology. And the prisons are very reticent to give inmates any access to technology and the internet, but I think that's a mistake. To get onto your sort of next rung of concerns there, I guess I want to both agree and disagree with you. I think that Michigan is one of the most segregated states in the country. Washtenaw County is no different. And so when you talk about redlining and segregation of our communities, and you talk about how the demographics in one school look very different than the demographics in another school, I totally agree. We need to do something about that. We need to do more about that. Part of that's about funding equity. Part of that is about equity on the sort of level of rigor of the curriculum. But I guess I do you know, think that there should be some differentiation, and I think that's okay and maybe even beneficial, right? I mean, you need to have some schools that are focusing on this, some schools that are focusing on that. So my kids have gone to Pittsfield, and one's now at Scarlett. I live on the southeast side. I am here at near Packard and Platt right now. Sure. And you know, the program at Mitchell and Scarlett is IB, so it's going to be different than Forsyth. But you know, I don't want to missed the real point that you were making, though.
Sure.
I think, which is that I want to agree with what I think is the real point you were making, which is that you know, the differentiation of resources available to different kids in different neighborhoods, the way that they're taught, and the way that they're seen by the district needs to be uniform. And frankly, I think that more resources need to go to schools and areas that have higher levels of poverty. You know, and so you look at, for instance, the PTO at my kids' school has an annual budget of maybe $25,000 a year. The annual PTO budget at King Elementary is $100,000 a year. Now that's a big difference. So yeah, I mean, we have huge issues with equity in Washtenaw County. You can't really talk about anything political in Michigan without touching on racism, because Michigan has huge problems with segregation and racism. So I don't want to put that aside. But I also do, I like a little bit of the differentiation between the different schools. And, you know, some schools are going to focus more on this or that. You know, Open has its own little philosophy and its own little world. And I mean, I think that's nice, as long as it doesn't lead to, you know, cementing or furthering these inequalities that we see across our community.